All right, welcome back to Innovation Unleashed. I'm Patrick Murray. Today we're going to be talking about our 2026 Cross-Channel Benchmark Report. I'm joined today by the brilliant Allie Naughton, who put a lot of time and effort into putting this report together.
Excited to jump in.
Let's start from the top. Allie, give me the big picture. What are the biggest trends or shifts that you saw this year?
Yeah, I feel like every past benchmark report in the last 3 years, we're talking about this shift from email to SMS. We know that audience is about 60 to 70% the same in terms of list overlap. And we're seeing that again this year. So I'm not going to spend too much time. I would say that's just a continuous trend that we've been seeing as we see that audience engage more in mobile, that channel continuously grow. I would say one of the big things we saw was transactional messages, and the engagement there grew a ton this year. Those messages always perform well. Like some of your best click-through rates because people are looking for their order confirmations or shipping confirmations. But I feel like they're becoming more and more critical than they've ever been because a lot of the inboxes are changing where they're putting those messages. So it used to be Gmail was the primary tab right there. Now they're making a purchases folder. In iOS 26, even with the SMS release, there was an update where you can do foldering there with unknown folders, but there's also an orders folder if you enable it. So I think we're seeing more and more differentiation of these transactional-based messages, so they're becoming more and more critical for retailers. So I would say that, from my perspective, is probably the biggest thing I saw. Send volume was almost the same for our retailers, but revenue grew 20% in those messages because people are seeing them, shopping again, and re-engaging. So it's a critical touch point for a lot of our clients this year.
That's awesome. AI is all the buzz, right? Conversational commerce, people starting their shopping experience on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? And are brands actually ready for this shift?
Yeah, that was one of those macro trends end of last year into this year. A lot of brands kind of shifted their focus to after holiday, where they're really evaluating what they need to be focused on for the years. I've been talking to a ton of brands so far this year in their annual reviews and stuff, and all of them are looking at AEO agencies, so the new SEO of the day. So I would say I can tell a lot of people are focused on it. I would say I don't think a lot of brands have fully adopted what that means. So for anyone who doesn't know what that means, essentially it's updating your website to be crawlable by AI agents and bots. So it's essentially saying, if I'm asking a question, so what should I buy? It's very conversational. So right. Things that are important that come up in that AEO conversation are things like Q&A. So you're going to see on PDP's Q&A sections pop up everywhere, because if you think about questions and problems people are trying to solve, if AI can read the answers on your website, you're automatically probably going to rank higher in that search result because you've given it the answer to what people are looking for. So that's going to be a big one. And I've also seen a lot of people setting up category-specific pages on their differentiation in the market. So that's not even down to the specific product, but more macro, why would you buy our beauty or our product because X, Y, and Z, to help inform why people might be shopping for you. So I think those two are going to be critical. A lot of the platforms are allowing agents to shop via API. So at one day, an agent could just buy for you if you are on a certain interval. And that's going to be critical too, I think, in this next phase of all AI shopping.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of green space right now because I don't believe a lot of brands are optimized for that type of search result, and that is where people are starting that discovery phase.
Yeah, I think in the data we've seen, it makes up about 2% of site traffic right now, so everyone's really focused on it, but it is still pretty small in terms of how many people are coming to sites from it, but it's only going to grow. So I think that's the most important piece, is the people focused on it now will see success.
I think it goes in line with, we're seeing zero-click search results on organic search, searches on Google, and people are getting answers from AI agents right on Google, they're not clicking through. So there's a shift in multiple channels. We got to figure out the best way for them to work together so you can get that valuable traffic to your site.
Yeah, the marketing mix is changing. Things that aren't changing too much, email and SMS.
That's right. Now, In 2024, email had a great year. It was booming. It was up pretty big.
Yeah.
2025, not so much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are you seeing there?
I would say we saw a lot of brands in 2024 doing like reactivation campaigns. So a lot of like, how do I get my dormant subscribers to engage more? So when we say like email was booming, I think send volume was up pretty drastically in 24. I think that had a lot to do with brands re-engaging some of those people. I also think that as we think about what we comped in 25, so our send volumes were kind of flat in 25, like a little bit up, but pretty flat. I think that's because you're comping that huge increase that we saw last year and keeping it pretty flat, which I think is positive. But in total, I think we're kind of maxing out the number of times people are sending per day, and the inbox is feeling crowded. And I think we're actually seeing the inverse with clients right now, where they're trying to be a bit more segmented and thoughtful as the inbox is just really crowded.
Yeah, you got to get the right message to the right person at the right time. So maybe not just over sending broadcasts, but letting those triggers kind of pick up and carry that conversation on.
Yeah. I like to say, like, email, the cheapest channel in terms of return, the best return, and it's a workhorse. So, like, at the end of the day, that is helping your triggers. It's also informing your active segmentation across channels like SMS, which is getting in front of the consumer at a better rate. So if you can talk to a really qualified person, that's the most important thing.
Nice. And you mentioned SMS. Still growing, still exploding?
Still really growing in terms of, I would say, engagement and dollar per message. I would say sends, I feel like people are starting to hit less growth than we've seen year over year, but I think that's just because programs are maturing.
Yeah.
So I do think it's more of people are now going into the long tail of, let me make sure I have all of my triggers that are cross-channel. Like, maybe originally I only put abandonment live and welcome live in SMS, but now I'm going to have all of my triggers across my lifecycle journeys be both email and SMS and cross-channel, and I just think that is going to be the best experience for the consumer.
Yeah, and we're seeing like a single message journey now we extend out for 1 or 2 days and have a second or third touch point through SMS as well.
Yeah, I would say the main campaigns on the SMS side, the report saw big growth in, was browse abandonment. So as we think about like personalizing journeys better, browse abandonment might have been just one touch, talking very generically, like, come back, we saw you shopping. We're seeing brands being super personalized. What category were you looking at? What are our best sellers or recommendations for you in that category? Like, even if you didn't make it all the way to a product, we're seeing brands spend more time and effort into personalizing the journey based on where you were. So I think that is one key journey, and then post-purchase is the other in SMS that we saw pretty great growth in. And the same thing is true. I think people are moving from this like generic thank you message to be really specific, especially in SMS with less characters. It's, how do I make sure I'm telling you what is the next best thing you should be thinking about? Or how do you use what you just bought in the most effective way that is worth delivering in that channel?
Yeah, and I mean, there's only 160 characters, right? So but make them count, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to send a generic message. You can add personalization. You know a lot about your customer base, so say something meaningful when you're sending those messages.
Yeah, and they cut through the clutter. So, like, even if you think about a review request, that's something that historically has always been this big email channel push. But if you want to really meaningfully up your reviews, you can send an SMS message that links them directly there. Like, it is a great way to ensure you're getting more feedback.
Yeah, and it's going to be more timely.
Yeah.
All right, you just talked about an SMS channel, a couple campaigns that made some big moves, right? SMS product browse and transactional messages saw some big gains. Anything on the email side that was a mover in 25?
Yeah, I would say email transactional, similar trends to SMS in terms of like huge click-through rate growth. On the email side, though, the other campaign that stood out would be loyalty. Yeah. So we actually touched on that in the last benchmark report as like almost an industry trend for the year, that a lot of brands were going to be focused on loyalty. We're seeing that even into this year, where we're seeing more send volume on loyalty campaigns. We're seeing more engagement. And I think that's just because people are being more thoughtful and they're trying to make really straightforward loyalty programs. So I feel like a lot of people are kind of getting rid of the amount of points you get translates into this dollar amount because people just can't follow it. And it's more of like giving you an immediate $5 reward when you hit X dollars in spend sort of thing. So I'm seeing a big trend in that, and we're seeing brands be more thoughtful in the execution because, again, someone in your loyalty program is ultimately more valuable to you than someone who isn't. So we have a lot of strategies from an account management side of the house where we will be really giving you the best practices on what are the messages that convert, because loyalty can get pretty over inundating if you aren't thoughtful about what you're sending people. So that would be the other campaign I would say saw good growth, and I think is kind of actually a trickle into this year from last year of a lot of people like thinking through their loyalty programs on the whole.
All right. Now there are campaigns that made a move, right, where we saw like some changes in KPIs that we're tracking. Which campaigns make the most money?
Well, other than broadcast marketing messages, obviously, those typically make up people's like 60% of their revenue for the most part. So when we're talking about places you need to be focused and be operating your best there, trigger campaigns, cart abandonment, still a workhorse. Welcome series, still a workhorse when we think about people coming into your brand. And then really just people who may not have converted right away, people who are re-engaging with your brand through other channels. I would say those two are table stakes, and I would say I keep seeing evolutions of those as people think through like what makes sense for their business. So with one of our trends is like free shipping is not a thing anymore. Everyone has a cutoff. So we're seeing a lot of brands who will do segmentation in cart abandonment that is talking more specifically to if you've already hit the cutoff. Right. If we know you already have free shipping, we should be messaging that in the messaging. And I feel like more people are being thoughtful about what's in your cart and not just sending a cart abandonment. So those are the two, welcome and cart, that make up the bulk of revenue in terms of triggered campaigns, and if done well, make up probably like a significant amount of your overall revenue too.
Nice. Any campaigns surprise you as maybe you would have thought that they were more of a revenue, driver, or there would be more engagement but kind of underperformed last year?
I would say in the benchmark report last year, we talked a lot about recurring automated campaigns, which are product rec-based recurring campaigns. This year, I wouldn't say we saw the same amount of growth in those, even though those are still a crucial part of strategy. And I think that's just because people set those up and they really need to be working to tweak them, change the cadence, change the algorithms, change the image at the top so it doesn't feel old. Like, I think they're getting a little stagnant and we're almost due for a reinvention of how those function. So that would be one that I think is still critical. Didn't have a crazy amount of change this year, like still contributing about the same, but I think it's probably because it's ripe for reinvention a little bit.
100%. I think of those as like a life cycle marketing type of touch point, right? It's an incremental send in your broadcast strategy. You got to make sure it's going to the right people. Yeah. So think of your customer base and different cohorts or segments there that are ripe for another touch. And it may be the lapsing customer, maybe your VIP customers, but it has to be coordinated with your overarching like broadcast strategy there.
Yeah, and SMS, funny enough, saw a lift in that campaign this year. Yeah. So when we think about the audience, it's a lot of the same people that are on your SMS list, on your email list. So seeing that campaign grow in SMS also could be part of that in terms of email. Not the same because you're not getting recommendations in your messaging app in SMS, but a lot of people are linking to a recommendations page and like picked for you. Yeah. It's a great message to make sure you're getting your compliance language out and things of that nature, but also just always revolving product. So that's one we're seeing a huge lift in people executing in SMS too. Yeah,
and I mean, it's all tied together, right? You got to look at it from an entire program perspective, but you'd mentioned Welcome Series as a workhorse. You also mentioned there's a lot of the same people in email and SMS, so they're getting both of those. They're getting that Welcome Series at the same cadence. And across the board, I know when I look at our customer base and our client base, first-time buyers or one-time purchasers make up somewhere 50 to 65, 70% at times of the entire, customer base for the year. Yeah. And so that welcome makes sense that it's a workhorse, right? Yeah. Like if one-time buyers make up the biggest cohort, that welcome series is important. Yeah. And email lists have been around for a long time, so they're much larger than the SMS. But when you look at recent subscribers, you're looking at like 70% of your new email subscribers are also subscribed to SMS. Yep. And that's huge. Yeah. And now flipping into like verticals, right? As we think of some verticals, that stat and those benchmarks may vary by vertical. But which verticals saw big wins this year?
Yeah, I would say 25 was a hard year in terms of like comping with revenue. So we did like some surveying with clients, and a lot of them said they were a little bit below last year. So I would say like in terms of macro points, I would say a lot of people were just comping last year. Some industries, though, specifically that we saw a lot of change in would be one was big box. That was one that we had a lot of clients bring on in-store data this year. So this is something that not every ESP offers, but is very influential and important for our brands that have store data. And with those, it's like you can see up to like 300, 400% attribution of email messages that you just did not know they were converting in store when you start bringing on store data. So I would say that's not necessarily like a lift in probably what was happening before, but more optics as we get clients bring some of that data on. We see a lot more like attribution. So you'll see things like RPS and conversion rates seem higher in those verticals. And that's because we have a lot more clients who are actually looking at like the full journey, which I think is super impactful for a lot of those campaigns.
It definitely is, right? Like you said, email's the least expensive channel, but it's a workhorse. And you think of the customer journey, right? As someone starts the buying journey for whatever vertical, whatever product they're buying, like email plays a key component in that whole active evaluation stage, and then helping them, convert, whether it's in store or online. And having insights into how that plays out is huge.
And I would say from an industry perspective, people who like retailers who have stores versus don't, stores saw a really good 2025.
People are going back.
People are going back. Good. So I do think that also plays a little bit of a role in like how people are engaging with brands is changing a little bit again. And so it's like, how do we keep up with that? And it's knowing the whole journey and being able to stitch the whole journey. Like for those brands, which shouldn't shock anyone, but for the brands who tile that in-store data, like Saturdays and Sundays are their biggest days, which shouldn't be shocking. But if you think about like the overall journey, you might send that email in the morning, but you'll probably send the SMS at like 10 a.m. when that person's actually more likely to probably go into your store.
Yeah, right.
So like there is something around the channel mix and timeliness, and being able to stitch that whole experience is like more critical than ever.
Yeah, that's so true. Thinking of verticals, right? Any shifts like up or down, or if there are in a channel like email may be down in one vertical, but SMS is really growing, or vice versa.
Yeah, I would say across almost every vertical, we're seeing like the SMS shift. I would say that's not specific. Beauty and fashion brands, I would say more heavily weighted in the SMS world. So when we think about like what the SMS revenue contribution mix is across our different verticals, for the most part, it's like 5 to 10% of revenue is SMS. I would say 10% is you have a decent program. 5% is probably average in terms of where people's mix is at the moment. For like beauty brands, we're seeing 15, 20, 25%, which is crazy. But again, that's where their consumer is. You find a lot of these brands have like a younger consumer, and that's the channel they're engaging in. So it's just one of those things that it's almost a mix of like who their demo is by some of those brands that naturally lean into other channels a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, 2026, let's get down to tax. Like, what should retail marketers be doing this year? And if you had like the number one thing they should put into their playbook this year, what would it be?
Yeah, so we already talked about AEO. That's outside of us, but that would be you must focus on that this year. And then I would say for us specifically, what we've been seeing, and what I would say if you don't do this today, you should, is focusing on targeting your like top consumers in your list. So no matter that's email or SMS or both combined. We saw GDP growth last year, and it was only because of the top 10% of earners in the US. So when you think about the people that are spending more, it's probably your top 10% of customers are making more of an outsized impact on your business than you really think. So from my perspective, it would be, how are you engaging those people? You should be talking to them more frequently than you're talking to your base. So they should be getting more communication, more personalized communication. You should be letting them know first when you're launching things, giving them the exclusive like look into the new things that you're working on. I think connection there matters more than ever if you think about your revenue growing year over year. So that's a big one. We're doing a lot of analytics on from an account management side of the house, but I think also plays into like what you should be focused on no matter your business going into 26.
I couldn't agree more. And Allie, that was incredible. Tons of insights. Can you tell our listeners where they could find this report?
Yeah, you can find our benchmark report on our website. We have overall insights, and then we have our 12 industry verticals broken down with insights by vertical, which some people spent a lot of time on. So feel free to check it out. And thank you for being with us today and listening to us today. Stay tuned for more of this content to come.
Thanks.